very welcome back to CurioCity Season 2, Episode 2, where we're going to start looking at all things AI. So before we start, we're going to go to our digital advocate, Ryan. Ryan, for the person on the street, AI, what does it all mean?
Well, it's very hard to narrow down artificial intelligence into one small area. I think the shortest way to summarise it is trying to take as much data into account as possible and using technology to help us make decisions in the future that we might not have been able to do ourselves.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. So without further ado, on with the show. So my guests for this episode are Yusuf Jazakallah, co-founder and CEO of Recruitment Smart. And I'm also joined by Riham Satti, co-founder and CEO of MeVitae. Folks, thank you very, very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. So, Yusuf, maybe if we start with yourself, do you want to give us an introduction into Recruitment Smart?
Sure, yeah. Recruitment Smart is in the business of automating candidate sourcing, candidate screening, and candidate engagement for large professional organizations globally. We connect into most of the job boards around the world, and we use AI and machine learning to automatically stack rank the candidates in the right order, thereby taking care of a lot of the aspects that the organization cares about, and then give them to recruiters straight away for taking it further.
Fantastic. And Riham, would you like to give us an introduction to your company?
No, absolutely. So MeVitae is a deep technology company aimed at detecting talent or potential in candidates or applications without any bias. And that could include unconscious or neurological biases as well as algorithmic biases. And not relying entirely just what's on a CV or job description, but like Ryan earlier said, data from around the world to be able to optimize decision making for employers.
Fantastic. So I've been very fortunate where in the past I've worked in both HR and recruitment. So I suppose if we look from a labour market perspective, I've had exposure to those. We did a lot of work around trying to remove cognitive bias from the recruitment process in the past. So we would have screened out whether the candidate was national, international, male or female, what generational stage they were in the workforce. If we start looking at AI and going back to that cognitive bias element, is it something we should be worried about, or is it something that we should be supporting today in terms of how we can address some of the issues that we face in the labour market in general?
Good question. So there's many different components to biases, right? There is the area in terms of what you're referring to, the data we use when we're making decisions, right? Demographic information, information in terms of like past hiring behaviours, all of these have an impact. But as well as that, throughout the hiring process, there are different types of biases that creep in, all the way from the way the job description is written, right? And there are different techniques that allow you to determine if a job description is more masculine versus feminine, all the way through to when someone reviews a CV or an application, right? Spending 6-8 seconds, right, really doesn't have we've scanned lots of brains of employers and we've tracked their eye movement, and we've realized that they spend most of the time on someone's name. That doesn't tell you if someone's good or not for a role. They'll spend time on someone's job title, but that means different things to different people and different organizations. So a data scientist at Oracle is not the same as a data scientist at MeVitae, for example. Mm-hmm. And the same thing for, someone's company. They also, employers will look at companies, organizations they've worked for. Same situation, right? Some people might prefer startups versus bigger corporates. And then on top of that, if you add AI on top of it and you're using certain demographic information, social mobility and all of this has a huge impact. So it's about being able to, you can't remove a bias, right? There's no way of doing that, but it's about trying to postpone it for as long as possible. And that could be, redacting components of CVs, or it could be, being very careful with the data that's being used to determine candidate suitability. But it's something that we should be very aware of, and something that has an impact in HR and in recruitment. And it's all around how do we minimize these biases so that companies have a fairer organizations, because the benefits are so immense.
Fantastic. Yusuf?
Yeah, I think we work with large global corporations, and we specifically focus on diversity and inclusion and a lot of other criteria as well as part of our overall algorithm. And I think we have a slightly different view, and the kind of companies that we work with. As I said, it is not possible to absolutely remove bias, which is absolutely true. But at the same time, it is also not possible to postpone bias in the process. So, what we try and do right now at this phase in the life cycle is actually control bias. So, in any organization, all the recruiters which are working in the organization are working individually, and their biases are different, and they all act and work differently. It doesn't work as a group right now because they are not connected well enough. So, what we do is we introduce standardized systems and standardized way of screening, standardized ways of sourcing, anonymizing the information so that the names and all the other specific kind of information doesn't create the bias. So it's all about standardizing and controlling the bias and sort of thereby reducing it the impact of what it can have on the final outcome of the process. So that's kind of what we do and we work with with the large organizations that we are helping solve this problem for right now.
Okay, so if we look kind of moving forward, and particularly from a trend perspective, firstly, I suppose if we look back, we've seen a change where people have favoured moving from blue-collar companies to kind of going to blue-chip companies. That's where we are today. Is AI agile enough or fast enough to learn the changes in behaviours from a candidate perspective in order for us to be able to respond to the demands of industry in order to ensure that they have, I suppose, the strongest labour force in order to get their business to the next level of success?
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting question. And I think what we see right now is AI is just a tool like any other tool. It all depends on how we use it, how we deploy it, and the kind of data that we feed into it. So for us, I think a lot of the focus at the moment is about training people in terms of how to use AI as the most effective tool, in the organization. So, we have seen various examples where things have gone wrong. I think I read an article about Microsoft bots, where they kind of read all the data which exists on Twitter, and the bot started not behaving in the right way. So there are various examples like that, and it is not the fault of the AI as such. It is the fault of the data that we as a society kind of feed into it. So it's all about training the employees in the right manner and feeding the right data to use the tools that we have most effectively in an organization.
Fantastic.
So the way I interpret it is, you're right. So people are moving away from blue collar to more white collar roles, and it's about predicting the trends that are gonna emerge in society, and being able to drive the education sector, employment sector, for people, either upskilling them or being able to understand what the demands are going to be, because there's a bit of a discrepancy between demand and supply. For example, data scientists. All of a sudden, that's a trend. Every startup, every company wants a data scientist, but how many data scientists are there, right? And it's because there is this discrepancy, and it's about bridging the two gaps. And one of the things that we kind of focus on is actually trying to predict what these trends are going to be. 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, what is going to be the next coming skill that's going to be very important for organizations, and how do we inform candidates, inform the education sector, etc., about these skills, so that the next time there's a wave of a new demand, people know that we can do things to actually try and compensate for that. And that's all about future of work and being able to compensate for that, and using technology, and whether it be AI and machine learning, natural language processing techniques, to be able to do that. But it's very important for organizations today to be able to kind of bridge the gap, because there was a statistic that I saw that we need about 1 million tech workers in the UK alone just to kind of bridge that gap. And it's really interesting, but what do we do about it? How do we do that? And it is about, being able to detect transferable skills. What other, industries can we take from, could be physicists, mathematicians, can we bring them in to become more computer scientists or data scientists, and that way bridging that gap. But it's all around future of work and being able to predict trends in the market, in the labour market sector.
Riham, you raised a very interesting point there about in terms of how we build out from our own ecosystem to other ones, such as universities and stuff. If we look at, for example, the generational change when we saw the likes of millennials come into the workforce, and there was this anxiety or panic among employers in terms of how do we work closely or how do we provide them with the demands that they are going to bring to the workplace. AI is, if we should be able to have a faster prediction in terms of moving forward with industry in the future, not just from a recruitment perspective, but their behaviours on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that would be, if that's the case, then, if that's possible, that would be wonderful, right? And there was an interesting study that was by McKinsey that said that there's a discrepancy between the kind of education and the employment sector. And everyone's kind of making everyone else accountable, right? So graduates are saying, they're prepared for the workforce, but the universities are saying, companies aren't telling us what the skills they need and what the behaviours are, and vice versa. And so and we need a kind of a new structure to be able to, or kind of a system that bridges that gap, and understanding the behaviours, the skills, all of these things. And it's all about communication, really, and making sure that we overlap these things together. But if it's, whether if we're using AI to be able to predict that and inform universities and students what these skills are going to be, and vice versa, has a lot of potential. And if we can do that, again, by, removing the kind of biases, in algorithmic biases and kind of unconscious biases or neurological biases that take place, then I think in general, organisations, companies, candidates or job seekers, and universities would be much, much happier, and we're making smarter, faster, and fairer decisions.
Yeah, I think the millennial question is a very interesting question, and I think the millennials, I think the priorities are very, very different. They have been brought up in a digital world. Kids as young as 2 or 3 years old know how to use an iPad straight away. So, it's a very different world that we live in. And I think one of the things that, organizations have noticed is all the issues that are out there. So millennials are in general kind of, less concerned about data privacy, which should be a concern for us because we have not built the right frameworks and the systems, especially on AI and other technologies, to protect privacy by default. So that's a very, very that's something that we need to, as a society, figure out. And AI is the way to do that. And secondly, I think they are also a kind of, focused on diversity and inclusion by default, pretty much. So I think I see, they are very open-minded in general. So I think that is a behavior that is we need to nurture and foster effectively in companies. And I think Riham raised a very good point about collaboration between universities and corporates. And I think that with corporate innovation programs running in different companies, which are working closely with universities and vice versa as well, I think that bridge is becoming shorter and shorter. And I think with more active collaboration, we should see this issue, being tackled, in the near future.
Fantastic. So if I move around an organization for a moment, and imagine I'm a chief operations officer, if I may give myself that title.
Good title to have.
Yeah. And AI is now in the workplace in terms of, we understand that that's in the background gathering a lot of data. But how am I truly using it, or how am I best utilizing it to make sure I'm getting the maximum value to ensure my organization's success?
I think it's a very interesting question. The COO has the biggest responsibility right now, and I think AI cannot work without data. And most of the organizations are on this journey, on this AI journey as we speak. And a lot of the organizations that we work with right now don't even know what data to capture, how to capture it, what is useful, what is not useful. There are no best practices, there are no benchmarks around any of this. And that is where, the job of the CEO becomes the most important. I think right now, it is that the journey of AI that all the organizations are in right now is more about discovery, and facilitating that base framework of data collection, data gathering, understanding the data in your organization, to then start building on top of it, and to then bring the AI into the place. So I think, as I said, it's most of the companies that we work with. I think they say, "Oh, when will the AI start working? Will it day one?" So I think so that shows the lack of maturity on the part of many organizations right now, and that is slowly changing as we speak, because we are here to educate them and say that, for AI to start working, you need to have the data first, which you don't have. So why don't you start collecting the data now? We will tell you what you need to collect, but then this will be the step one on your AI journey. So I think that's how we see this sector evolving, and in the role of the CEO evolving from being kind of looking at operations in general to looking at operations as well as the data behind the operations and how that can benefit the AI journey of an organization into the future.
Phenomenal.
I'm going to take a different angle to this question,
Good.
if I may. The way AI is perceived is there is this race of man versus machines, right? It's going to replace people, it's going to replace jobs. There was an interesting article, I think, by Oxford University that said in the next, 25 years that about 60% of jobs are going to be automated. So as a CEO, you might be thinking, I'm going to be replaced in the future. Now, I'm staring I'm in this room, and on the left there's a screen that says CurioCity. On the left there's a robot with its hands kind of pointing in the other direction to a hand, and they're kind of merging. Now, that's to me where AI is at the moment. So AI is not here to replace people and jobs. It's here to make people more efficient. And we often use the term augmented intelligence. It's augmenting us. It's making us better, faster, more efficient. So you can spend more time doing the things you love, right? So if spreadsheets is the things you love, you do spreadsheets. But if it means, a machine can help you do calculations and optimize and get more data, then let it do that. It shouldn't be a race of man versus machines, or it should be more man plus machines. It's kind of a human plus concept. And I think that's where AI and augmented intelligence and machine learning can take us. It's around really the interactions between the two, but us facilitating what those interactions are, because otherwise we'll jump into the ethics of things and we don't have all day. But it's really important to be able to understand that AI is really about, making people more optimal and kind of making them limitless. If you could take a limitless pill and make you faster, more accurate, more efficient, then I think, I'm for that. And technology should be able to enable us to do that and making you do the things that you love.
That's very, very interesting you should bring it up, because it's, I suppose, AI, it's not something that has just evolved over the past 18 months. So we're familiar with it. We grew up with films as kids where there was elements incorporating it, and it almost instilled a sense of fear within people, because we're all going to be taken over and we won't have a thought process, etc. So if we look at removing the Hollywood element out of it,
Yes.
and look forward to, from a business perspective, say 5 years' time,
Yeah.
where would you see us going, or where do you think we'll be?
That's do you want to answer, or shall I?
Sure. I mean, I think where AI is right now, I think, as I said, it is more in the data gathering and data collection phase. And I think in 5 years' time, I see this domain, becoming more automated. So I think what I see is, as Riham said, it's not about man versus machine. It's man plus machine. And right now, humans are training AI to do things as we see now. I think once that AI is mature, I think hopefully we can move on to other things, better things. So the problem right now that we have is AI is not good at doing innovative jobs. So, if you have to wake up in the morning and you need to do something interesting, AI is not going to be able to do that. But if you have to wake up in the morning and do the same boring thing over and over again, then AI is able to do that. So I think it is important to make that distinction. We as human beings focus on what our core strengths is, which is innovation, creativity, and all of the good things, and let all the boring and the mundane jobs go to AI. So I see this transition over the next 5 years happening, more and more distinct. So, for example, in the industry of cars, for example, you will have driverless cars coming in, so that all those boring, repetitive journeys on the motorways become automated. Similarly, in the workplace, I think all this mundane tasks of recruitment, HR, all of these things will become more and more automated, and people will be able to focus on the more value-adding aspects of building relationships, creating their brand strategy. So, in each and every aspect of the organization in the next 5 years, I see this shift happening slowly, where people are able to do what they love and like doing more and more, and hopefully the things that we don't like doing, we can get the AI to do it.
Fantastic.
Two things. One, I like driving on the motorway, so I still want my car. I gave Yusuf a chance to think first, to kind of speak first, and I'm still trying to formulate an answer because it's so broad. If we take it from, so there's this interesting illustration that was developed by, got the name, Tata, and it's got all our core technologies that we have today, the internet, the kind of social media, the foundations that we have today. And then it has this kind of bifurcation process, so it goes into two angles. One is emerging technology, so the AI, all the way to the very kind of human-machine convergence, or cyborgs and all of these things. And in that bifurcation process, there's an overlap area where there are the core kind of areas or impacts AI and all these technologies have. Everything from climate change to, which is a hot topic at the moment, all the way to kind of the Generation Zs, to unemployment, and all the way to kind of transportation. And I still want my car, but it has all these really key areas that are going to be transformed in the next 5 to 10 years. How fast they happen is debatable, depending on how fast startups and technologies innovate. But it has a lot of potential. And that potential will help people, augment what they do, right? Help them do the things that they love on a day-to-day. So examples could be that, you can have machines to be able to tell you, this is the next person you should be hiring. We've done all the analysis in the background. This is the person you need to hire. Go network and meet them, right? And that's HR people love interacting and meeting new people. It could be all the way down to, chatbots being used at the moment, so that, to answer questions. We have some of that today, right? And it goes all the way to the extreme, but the potential it has is really immense. And in the 5 years, it's, yes, formulating some of what those things are, and a bit of kind of regulations might creep in as well, because the way things are developing very fast, it's very hard to catch up. But there's a lot of potential in optimizing how we work today and how we interact with technology today. And I think that's where a lot of the potential can lie. But it's a very broad answer I've given, but I think there's a lot of potential in it.
What's becoming very interesting to me, as both of you were speaking, is if we look from an organisational culture perspective, really a two-part question. One, how do we build a culture that adopts AI into our organisation, firstly? And second of all, how do we utilise AI to build a stronger organisational culture for ourselves, so that it's, I know, Yusuf, you had mentioned earlier about moving the repetition from tasks. And we see businesses constantly Pizza Fridays or, no runner Thursdays or whatever the case may be. Yeah. How can we actually move beyond to make it a more fulfilling place in the workplace for everyone using AI?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. So I think nowadays I see, most of the large organizations are moving towards this concept called as a breathing organization. So a breathing organization is effectively an AI-enabled organization. So each and every aspect of the organization is augmented by some sort of AI. And I think it is in bits and pieces right now, but slowly it's all coming together, especially around the culture and the workforce. So if you look at things like, for example, the HR policies and the HR strategies, they are all always very dynamic, and all the employees, they are very, very be able to work very flexibly. They're able to kind of report on where they are at all times to their manager. So the workplace is becoming more flexible. It's more adaptable to what everybody needs in their day-to-day life. This is also improving the productivity and efficiency of all the employees, because you are no longer constrained to coming to an office and doing a 9 to 5 job. It's becoming more global. So the technology that is around us effectively is supporting the capability of this organization becoming a breathing organization. And all the AI and the tools around us are actually helping everybody enable that. So that has led to a drastic change in the culture of all the organizations anyway, and it's an ongoing process, as I said earlier. So it's about more flexibility, it's about more productivity, more efficiency, supporting the employees in a better way, becoming more inclusive, and allowing, bringing more accessibility into the workplace. So I could see that previously, some of my friends, who had kind of vision difficulties or learning difficulties, they are really good, data scientists, but they could not have contributed effectively 10 years back, but now they can, effectively, So that's where I see, technology making a huge transformation. It is converting organizations from the static, monolithic bureaucrats to something which is living, breathing organization, which is all inclusive, all supportive, and it allows organizations to grow much, much faster and much better than everybody around them.
That's a good point, actually. The beauty of companies today is that everyone has different personalities, different behaviors, different interests, right? And the more we have of that, the more diverse and inclusive an organization is, the better it can innovate and drive, right? And I think of kind of technology or adoption of technology a bit like crossing the chasm. I don't know if you've seen the book. You have all the early adopters who love and thrive technology, right? And those are the ones who are bringing technology into an organization, right? And this is why companies now have innovation teams, right, that are trying to use blockchain, they're trying to use AI, they're trying to use natural language processing to make their organization more efficient. But then it becomes, how do you get more people to adopt that in a culture? And that is, that's where things about user interface and, having that UI, that UX, where people understand the benefit and it actually solves a need an organization has. And that's where most people start to be able to kind of get used to the concept of AI and machines, taking into account media and its perceptions, all the way to the late adopters and saying, there was no use of this technology, and then all of a sudden they're loving it, right? So for me, having a culture and an organization that allows everyone to be able to cross that chasm is really essential, and allowing companies to have that culture is key. And that means hiring people from a diverse background, everything from the Generation Z to the baby boomers, right? So that we all have different opinions, have different viewpoints and different ideas, because, I think that's where a lot of innovation gets fostered. And if we can drive that within a company's culture, and that happens not later down in a hiring process, but very, very early on, from the very C-suite, what kind of organization does a company want to be? And how do we hire the people that are going to let us take it to the next level? And because if you don't innovate, you die, right? And it's kind of very, very important in every organization. So it's very essential that companies use the technology we have and utilize it responsibly and with accountability, but letting people be able to experiment and try new things to be able to foster that team and organisation.
Phenomenal. So if I can jump for a moment, I know both of your organisations have been part of the Oracle Startup Programme. It's just to get an understanding, how has that helped you grow your business to where it is today?
Yeah, I think we have been partners with Oracle through the global startup ecosystem since more than 18 months now. And I think partnering with Oracle has been a really good experience. So I think Oracle brings a lot of expertise in running large-scale, I would say, infrastructure and capability. And they really understand how to work with large organizations. And when we as startups, I think, when we are in a similar space, trying to engage with these larger companies, we need a partner who understands scalability, who understands robustness, who understands all of these things that actually matter to large companies. So I think our product basically works on the Oracle ecosystem, on the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. It is highly scalable, and we have received a lot of help from Oracle to achieve that in our product. And of course, we are also fully integrated into the Oracle suite of products. So so that has really helped us deliver a very seamless experience to all of our customers. And in turn, it has helped Oracle deliver innovation into the customers as well. So it is really a very good program which helps achieve kind of the win-win scenario for clients, because that is all we are trying to do effectively, is to solve some of the biggest problems that customers face today, specifically on the recruitment and HR domain.
Fantastic. Great to hear.
I remember the first day I was introduced to the concept of, Oracle Startup Program. I was in an event in Reading, and this guy, I'm not going to embarrass him, but this guy came up to me, works at Oracle Startup Program, and said, "Have you heard of this program that we're running?" And we're like, "We've heard of the competitors, but I didn't know this happened." Sat down, and he kind of gave me a kind of a little pitch, really, of what the impact is, and I was hooked, to be honest, because it is the scalability component. It is the ability for companies to be able to use your technology efficiently. We're talking about optimization, decision making, all of that, and it really is allowed us as an organization to be able to do that. Now, technical is one thing, but also from our perspective, it's around the interactions we've had with people in Oracle as well. We're sitting here doing this podcast, right? So we've got people who have, if I need something, I pick up the phone and go, we need some help in marketing. Who can we speak to that will help us? I've had people help me with kind of patents and attorneys and stuff like that. And that is due to just being part of that ecosystem, that connections and that fostering with people that we've never would have interacted with is a huge kind of USP for people to at least check it out. What's the harm? And, I'm a huge advocate of it, and so is Yusuf. So, I think you're doing something right.
Fantastic. Great to hear. Talking about doing something right, not just right, doing something phenomenal.
Yeah.
I know, Riham, you are doing amazing work around women in tech at the moment. And it's fantastic to see a voice being created, and a very strong voice as well.
Thank you. Practice makes perfect.
Do you want to share some of the experiences and maybe how AI may be helping you in your fight at this point in time?
AI has made me a businesswoman, hasn't it? Right? That's one thing it's done. I really am a huge advocate for being able to, give people a voice. And, it shouldn't be based on age, gender, sexuality, any of these, because it doesn't really define talent. Talent can't be standardized, and it comes in different ways and shapes and forms. And I'm really passionate about getting people to do the things that they love and helping them along the way, and whether it be mentoring them or just having a conversation. Because sometimes, running a company can be kind of very exhausting, and it can be a very kind of emotional experience. And having someone to just kind of pick up the phone and go, am I doing this right? Down to the mentors we've had, it's really had an impact on me, and I feel like giving that back is really crucial. And so, building kind of networks, kind of LinkedIn and Women in Tech, so being part of like groups such as like Tectonic around, being able to support female founders is really important. And that just doesn't happen for business people, but it has an impact in organizations as well. Being able to, build that more diverse and inclusive workforce where people love the things that they do, and that, companies are stronger and more efficient just by doing it. And, it really does kind of pull on heartstrings and be able to give back in that way. And to be honest, AI is why it's given me that platform to be able to do that. If it wasn't for AI, I don't know what I'd be doing, to be honest.
Fantastic. Now, Yusuf, I know you have a very ambitious goal as well in terms of you're trying to make life better and happier in the workforce for everybody. So from an AI perspective, how is it helping you with your passion?
Yeah, I think I used to have a corporate life, in my previous career. So I think what I've always seen, and I have noticed, it's all my friends, colleagues, everybody I meet, I think they are many a times they are not very, very happy in where they are in terms of their career, in terms of their jobs, and this is quite prevalent, in fact. So I think I'm a real believer that I think everybody should really enjoy what they do, and I think that is the future of work. And I think there is something that everybody likes, and there is a job for everybody. They just need to find it, I think. So I'm all about creating a platform that basically facilitates this discovery, makes it easier, automated, and AI actually has helped me pursue that vision, and it has made it possible to do that. And I think so. That's the journey that we are on. And I think some of the best, so the biggest pain points and the biggest problems that are there are kind of in the corporates right now, in the enterprise space, because that's where I think a lot of the people, there's a huge amount of talent, there's a huge amount of potential, but I think they may not be at the right place. Even internally within the organization, we help people find a better job inside the organization as well, not just outside. So it's all about facilitating that discovery, building a talent mining platform. And of course, diversity, inclusion, and bias, and all of these good things are actually blockers to enabling this future utopian world, right? That we all are trying to aspire to. So I think these are some of the blockers that we are trying to clear as well. But I think it's all part of a larger journey that we are on.
Fantastic. So, folks, we're just coming towards the end of our time for today.
Thank you.
Before we do go, any big announcements or big insights you'd like to give us into your company? Anything that's coming up, Riham?
Oh, there's a lot going on. Probably need more than a couple of minutes. So we've got a new rebrand that's just happening at the moment. So that's going to be very exciting. We're kind of in this just interesting stage where we're scaling out the organisation and making sure that MeVitae is in the hands of all these large organisations and corporates. And we've been developing, so my background's completely academic, really, coming from a research background. And we spent 3+ years building MeVitae from the ground up. And we've been in the fortunate case where now we've got huge use cases that we're building, and there will be a huge announcement actually next month around that, so keep posted.
Fantastic. Yusuf?
Yeah, I think as Riham said, in the startup world, there's a lot going on all the time. I think we are also in the exciting part of a journey where I think we have more customers than we can handle, and I think we are launching our the new candidate engagement part of the platform early next year. So I'm really excited about that. We are also raising our next funding round, Series A funding early next year. So I'm really excited about that as well. And yeah, I think overall, I would say we are expanding our team in a major way. So, and we are opening up a new presence in the Middle East as well. So lots going on. So stay tuned, and we are excited about a partnership with Oracle and see where it leads us in 2020.
Well, fantastic. And I wish you both very, very best of luck with your businesses.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you very, very much for joining us today. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Likewise.
So thank you very, very much. Now, in episode 3, it's going to be all about infrastructure. So, Ryan, do you want to give us a bit of a background?
There's in the future, all startups are going to need some sort of infrastructure to base it off of. So what we like to talk about is just about how they're using it at the moment and how it allows them to do great things like the stuff that you guys are doing. So that'll be the next one for us.
Fantastic, Ryan. Thanks a million. So, to Yusuf from Recruitment Smart and to Riham from MeVitae, I'd like to thank you all very much for joining me today. From Owen for guiding us, for Ryan for guiding us through all of the technical side, and to Owen on sound. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to you joining us in episode 3.
Thank you.